Yes, good day, classy. Thank you so much for tuning on to Metric Club. We are meeting once again, grade 11 geography term 3 revision. We just want to quickly cover and reflect on the content of term 3, just to ensure that we have covered all the areas necessary. So without wasting any time, I have got questions that I have attached on board here, which we are just going to work on. You are given these ones, and options are provided as possible answers of the following questions. Choose the answer and write only the letter next to the question number. And then I'm saying, in this case, guys, please take note of the instructions. Instructions in the exam are always very important, no matter we know the content. So South Africa is part of the dash trade bloc, the trade bloc that South Africa falls in. I'm sure we understand that the BRICS is it is where South Africa forms part of the BRICS trading bloc, which I'm sure that you should understand that that is one of the key. That is the major trading bloc, or the trading bloc that South Africa falls in. And then number 1.2, aid from donor countries that include masks. We talk about aid from donor countries that include masks, ventilators in a time of medical crisis. We have got such an example during COVID. In the times of medical crisis is an example of dash aid. So we are saying that we talked about about AIDS. If you can refer also on the notes, on the videos. We have got videos on our channel where we talked about the types of AIDS, and also their advantages and disadvantages of AIDS and so forth. So please, for further content, refer to the channel on AIDS. It is there. There is a video there. So when a country receives masks and ventilators in times of medical crisis, this is a humanitarian intervention that is done in order to save life. So we talk about humanitarian as an intervention that is taken with the understanding that lives are at danger. So it is an humanitarian intervention, in the humanitarian aid. DASH forms the basis of an export-led approach to development. When we talk about export, we are talking about international trade. What happens is that in terms of international trade, the basis of it that can lead to development, it is technology. I'm sure, remember, we talk about this is linked to what? To globalization. Globalization has been made possible because of the availability of technology. The fourth industrial revolution, it is actually going and taking over the world as a whole as a result of the advancement and development in technology, where we are now operating and running a single market, which is over the web. So it is technology that is actually forming the basis of an export-led approach to development, because people are able to enter and also be able to filter through various markets which are outside their geographical location, irrespective of the distance. So what I'm saying is, take note of the concern that it is technology that is responsible for facilitating export-led approach to development, because of the interface that it provides in terms of e-commerce or e-business that we are going through. I'm saying refer to it, also discuss it under globalization. And then Dash is an example of trading relationship that protects local markets from foreign competition. We've been talking about trade. So when foreign companies, we normally talk about relationship that protects local products from foreign competition. Most of the times, it is competition that is intense, that is caused as a result of saying the local companies or local industries are not strong enough. So what has to be done there is that the business I mean, the country must ensure that they make it fair, they make it possible for the local businesses to also flourish. So now, what causes that? It is because uh, it is actually facilitated because uh, because of trade barriers. Trade barriers are there to disturb or to actually prevent. They are there to prevent, to stop. Trade barriers are an example of a trading relationship that protects local businesses or local products. So with trade barriers, what happens is that foreign businesses or foreign products are not allowed to freely move across the borders of the host country. Therefore, what happens is that some restrictions are put in place. So these restrictions basically stops, prevents the movement or the entrance of foreign products and services into the local business market or local economy. So it is trade barriers that are there. Obviously, free trade, it means there is free movement of goods. Fair trade again, and unfair trade is now in terms of the unfairness in terms of trading. So trade barriers are the ones that are there to prevent movement of foreign products into a local market in order to protect the local businesses. So number 1.25 Number 1.25, a gender inequality index, GII of a dash indicates more equality among males and female. We know gender inequality, we are talking about the variation, the difference between the male or between men and women. So the gender inequality index of dash indicates a more equality among. So we are saying we want the one that provides or that indicates a relatively more equality or a more equality among males and female. So it has to be low, it has not to be that much. So we talk about that in the lowest terms of it as what 0.21 it is supposed to be 0.21, which we are saying the answer is what is C. So as much as we see big values and so forth, we are trying to also say that it is no more equality, it is inequality. So there is a standard of deviation, there is a standard of variance, difference that must exist, which is at least a more equality gender index is supposed to be 0.21. So trade blocks, they encourage trade blocks. When countries are in a trade block, they are in an understanding of business trading, which allows each of the various countries that are within that in that agreement to trade without any problem. They are able to trade and move goods among us and across each other's borders with no barriers. So what does trade barriers, I mean trade blocks encourage? They encourage free trade such that countries are able to trade with each other with no barriers, with no limitations, with no restrictions. So trade blocks actually allows free trade amongst the member states that are within the bloc. That's what it. I mean, that's what happens in that respect. A dash describes the relationship between the value of a country's exports and imports, whereas two in term three, the value, the relationship between the value of country's exports and imports. What explains that? The value of a country's imports versus its exports. So what we are saying is that it is when we look at the value of the country's imports and exports, we need to understand that these are supposed to be taken into account that a country can have balance of payments which has to be favorable and unfavorable is whereby we are looking at the differences or the variation in terms of the imports and exports. So if a country has got more of exports, it has got a favorable balance of what? Balance of payment. we are looking into the payment scenario, whereby how much money is being spent on foreign products versus the country's money that it spends on what on also, I mean, the money that it spends on buying foreign products versus the income that it makes. So in other words, remember, this has also been explained where we say that a country must have a favorable balance of payment when exports must always be more, and then we have got imports imports must be less. So when we have such a scenario, we have got a favorable balance of payment. We have got a good balance, a favorable balance of payment. We understand. So it is the difference between the imports and exports. It indicates the balance of payments. It indicates the balance of payment. Dash is the world's fastest developing economy. I'm sure we can see that we have got the fastest developing, one of the world's fastest developing economy. We have got China as our fastest developing economy, or is it we can talk about China as versus India versus Japan versus South Africa. So now a country's fastest, the world's fastest developing economy. We have got India is developing as a result of its art and art and film industry. I'm sure we have seen that to say that we have got India having a good and flourishing economy because of the art and film industry that we see, which is flourishing. So now we are saying developing economy, and you should understand that it is what it is India. It is India, the fastest world developing economy. In the list that is given there, we cannot omit India there. Number 3, it illustrates the inequalities in development between developing and developed countries. The inequalities between the developed and developing countries. So now what we need to look at is the inequality in these through the cartoons that are given there. We need to look at that through the cartoons that are given. So now we are given developing countries which are given here. We have got Hatsi that we can see there. We can see some what we call a person eating. Maybe we can say here we can have little food that the person is eating here. We are having some little food this person is eating. We have got developed countries which have got some good living. We are seeing entertainment that is shown there. We can talk about here there is a full meal. As you can see, it's a lot of food here, which we can see by this chicken there. We have got other pots that are closed, and we can even see some nice juicy taken through a straw there. We have got some services that people are not paying, which are shown written stop paying for some services here. They are not paying for them. They are given services or provisioned services there. So now the question is saying we have got percentage workforce in economic sectors. The various economic, we have got tertiary sector, we have got our secondary sector, we have got the primary sector, and then the question reads like, how do the illustrations depict inequality in development? The cartoon, how does it depict inequality in development? So what we need to understand is that looking from the picture here, we are looking from the cartoons there. So the cartoons are showing us the differences in between the developed and developing countries, which I was actually already mentioning and showing there. So one thing which we can the key items that we can see, one, we are saying we need to see that developing countries have poor housing, which we can see there. They have got poor housing, which I said we have the hearts there. So the developing countries have got poor housing. Developing countries have poor housing. I was showing. I actually marked you showing that we have got hearts that are shown there, which I also showed you that there is also little food. There is little food also. Little food that is shown there. We also talk about we also have lack of technology. Lack of technology, which we can see there. And then whereas developed countries, whereas if you can look at developed countries, what we can see in developed countries, we are seeing very well that the developed countries, they actually have modern housing, which you can see these are curtains that are just typed nicely. We have got couches here that are shown here. We have got TV, and we have got also even this one can be a fan or a heater that is also shown there. So now what we are saying is that the developed country, whereas developed countries have modern houses, have good modern houses, they have good modern houses, which also there is also we talk about the entertainment there. There is advanced technology and a lot of food. Any of these are very correct to say that that is the variation that we are seeing between the developed and the developing countries. That is one of the key differences that we can see there as we look from the cartoons. That I'm saying it's a full chicken here that you can see a lot of food here in this, and then we have got other nice, either is ice cream dishes or what, dessert. We have got also some entertainment. All these things are there in developed countries. So that's the variation or the inequalities that we can see and explain in regard to that. And then question next is saying, name two living conditions illustrated by the cartoonist regarding people, two living conditions that we can say that living conditions illustrated by the cartoonist regarding people in developing countries. What we can see there is that people in developing countries, what we can see, I already mentioned some of them that we have got what in people in developing countries, there are problems that we can talk about. If people have poor housing, so we can talk about huts. We can talk about the huts there. Living in huts or poor houses. We can talk about also lack of food. We have got lack of food also, which we said there is little food in this. We can talk about poverty. We can talk about poverty. We can as well maybe add to talk about we have got poverty. Conditions that are manifesting in developing countries is poverty. We can also talk about unemployment, which can also be shown because of the poor housing. Unemployment is also a problem that we are seeing in this case. Unemployment. What else? Which we can also talk about lack of modern facilities. Lack of modern facilities. There is no modern facilities that we can talk about in question next. That is question, according to question 1.3.2. Question 1.3.2. 1.3.2. We are saying that people here have got poor housing, lack of food, poor facilities. All those are examples of conditions that are illustrated, showing people in developing countries. And then the next question is saying, by using information on the sketch, differentiate between the countries by referring to one economic indicator and one social indicator of development. So now we are saying give the difference between the two countries using these factors that are there. So now we are saying using one economic indicator and two social indicators of development. So you just need to be able to understand class. You need to be able to understand what is social and what is economic development indicators. So when we are talking about economic, we are talking about everything that has to do with money, that has to do with wealth. It is economic. So if we are looking at social, we need to look at factors that has to do with the living standards, the lifestyle of people. So then I'm gonna just give the examples as right now. So one economic indicator and two social indicators of development. So now I'm gonna just quickly give that. Let's say number 1.3.1, 1.3.3, 1.3.3. So what we are saying is differentiate development with using one economic and two social indicators. So now, let's have this economic indicator one, economic indicator. So on economic indicator, we can say developing countries have got low income. Developing countries they have low income. We can talk about the developing countries having low income. We can talk about reliance on primary sector and reliance on primary sector, and then developed countries. Obviously, we are saying this. The question wants us to. It wants us to differentiate. It wants us to give the difference between the developed and developing countries. So we are using the economic indicator as income and the reliance on primary sector in developing countries, and then developed countries. Developed countries, they have got high income. They have got high income developed countries, and also strong secondary and tertiary sector, and reliance on strong secondary and tertiary sectors. The developed countries, they have got high income, reliance on strong secondary and tertiary sectors. That is one other key difference that we can give in this regard. And then in terms of social indicators, what are we gonna say in terms of social indicators? Social indicators differentiate between the two social indicators. So now, what we are saying is developing countries, in terms of social indicators, developing countries, we can talk about poor health care, poor health care. We can talk about poor education. We can also we are saying poor education, poor health care. We can also talk about poor infrastructure and poor infrastructure. And poor infrastructure. These are just examples that we can give in terms of social. You can also talk about malnutrition. Malnutrition is also problems that we have in terms of developing countries. And then developed countries in terms of social, developed countries, what do we have? Obviously, the opposite is very correct. They have got better health facilities. Developed countries have got better health facilities. They have better health facilities. We can also talk about advanced technology. Advanced technology. We can also talk about in terms of in terms of well-developed infrastructure, well-developed infrastructure, as well as many other examples that you can give. Better living conditions. There are also good advancing high literacy rates. There are also social indicators that we can find in developed countries. So let's look to the next. Let's go to the next question. The next question is saying, use both the sketch and the triangular graph to answer the following questions. Which of the letters on the graph X or Y represents the workforce of developed countries? Which of the letters indicate the workforce of developed countries? So now, what we need to understand is that when we look at the workforce, we need to understand that if we look on our graph, which of the letters indicate we are saying secondary sector, primary sector, percentage workforce in economic sectors. So what I can say is that we might not have this graph. Unfortunately, the graph was just taken from unclear source. But what we need to understand is that in terms of workforce, our people, we have got majority of our people in developed countries, developed countries. What happens is that most of their people, they work in what? Work in secondary and tertiary sector. And then if you look at the opposite, which is the developing countries, most of their people or most of the workforce works in what? In the primary sector. So we say that our developing countries are predominated by primary sector. So therefore, we cannot deny and we cannot be able to have ourselves doubts about that. So what happens is that the letters on the graph XY represent the developed and developing countries. So we are saying the developed countries are shown by a majority of their people within the what? Majority of their people, they are in the secondary and tertiary sector. Therefore, it represents that it is what? It is uh, it is a secondary sector. It is a developed country. You understand? So, which of the letters of the on the graph X or Y represent the workforce of developed country? So, when we have got the developed countries, like I'm saying, it has to be uh, which of the letters represent the workforce of a developed country. We are saying that the developed country must have more of the people in what? In the secondary and tertiary sector. Therefore, which the one that represents that which is supposed to be the tertiary sector, we can say that represents the developed country. And then the explanation, obviously, like I'm saying, explanation for the answer, which explain your answer in terms of why do you say that represents the developed countries. I'm saying that you need to understand that uh, in developed countries, fewer workers are in the primary sector, where most of the people are employed in what? In the manufacturing and secondary sector. And then this actually matches the distribution points which are shown according to our graph. Like I said, it is just not clearly visible, but we want to understand and agree that if we have got uh, our our X is horizontal, we have got our X, we have got our Y going up there. So therefore we are saying we can mean to say that where we have got most of the people working in the secondary sector and tertiary sector represents the developed countries. In developed countries, in developed countries, most of the workforce of their workforce uh, is is employed in secondary and tertiary sectors. Tertiary sectors than primary. So that is the reason why we can give to say that than primary sectors. So what we need to understand is that remember we also even have as well as specialized services like IT, like our IT industries. It has got also many people working in there. You understand? So let's just quickly answer the extract. The extract and map in Fig 1.4 shows contradictory viewpoints on the globalization and multinational corporations. Study the viewpoints carefully and answer the following questions. So let's just quickly check on the map. Globalization, multinational corporations engage in very useful and morally defensible activities in third world countries for which they frequently have received little credit. The significant amount among these activities are the extension of opportunities for earning higher income as well as the consumption of improved quality goods and services to people in poorer regions of the world. Instead, these firms have been misrepresented by ugly or fearful images by dependence theory advocates. So, because many of these firms originate in the industrialized countries, they have been viewed as instruments for the imposition of Western cultural values on the third world countries, rather than allies in their economic development. So, the first question wants us to understand to say, what is multinational? Define multinational companies, multinational cooperation. Define what is multinational cooperation. So what we need to understand is that when we answer these questions, you basically need to work on what on context of the question that is given in response to what we have on your book or in the question paper. So now the question wants you to understand what are multinational corporations. Multinational corporations, we basically define them as MNCs, which is MNC, which is multinational corporation. So what we say, what you need to know is that these are companies that operate in more than one country. Companies, it's companies are operating in more than one country. Companies that operate in more than one country and their headquarters which operate, we are saying they operate in more than one country, and then you shall find out that their headquarters in one country and branches, factories or offices in other countries in one country. So what you see again is that their headquarters in one country, they operate in more than one country, and with headquarters, we can say HQ, headquarters in one country, and offices are in another country, and their offices are in another country. Their offices in another country. We call that a multinational company. Companies that are operating in more than one country, which you find out that their headquarters are in one country and their offices in other countries, that we can talk about as multinational companies. we can define those as multinational companies. Offices and factories can be found in another country, but their also head offices and headquarters are in different countries. So therefore we call that a multinational company, multinational, because it is involving more than one country. So many countries are involved in the operation or in the business functions of that company. And then name one negative viewpoint that people have of multinational corporations according to the extract. So if you can look here now, is that multinational companies, according to our extract, you shall see that multinational companies are criticized because of many things. One, they have got they impose Western cultural values, which is actually instruments for imposition of West cultural values. We are saying they impose Western cultural West cultural values. They impose Western cultural values. They also are criticized because of the exploitation of the poor countries. We also define them that they also have a problem of exploiting poorer regions. It's a problem that we also have about them. Exploitation of poorer regions. They are exploited because of the way they do their business. They also basically just appear as they are actually just more dominating than allies for development. Their cultural values, rather than we are saying on West, they are also seen as instruments of many other things rather than allies for economic development. So their predominance rather than rather than business rather than business partners. So they are not seen as business partners. They are just seen as what? As exploits. That is one other reason why they are taken in that viewpoint. And then explain the contradictory opposing viewpoint regarding globalization illustrated in the extract and the map. If you look at the explain the contradictory viewpoints regarding globalization illustrated in the extract and the map. If you can look here, what we need to understand is that we look at this, we are able to see that there is also a positive viewpoint there, which we can identify that we are just saying the opposite of what people see. These things of saying we have got also them also improving the quality of life and also giving poorer, and also they also have got the interest of also changing the lives of the poor. So what we need to understand is that we would look at the positive viewpoint. We can look at the positive viewpoint in this respect in question 1.4.3, 1.4.3, 1.4.3, the contradictory viewpoints. Let's start with the positive. The positive viewpoint that we can give is that we say multinational companies, they provide both, they are actually, they do provide job opportunities, That is one key thing that we talk about as in terms of the contradiction, as they provide that they allow people to earn higher salaries. They allow people or employees to earn higher salaries, which also we can say is income, and also it improves the access to good quality of goods and services and improvement in access to goods and services of high quality. It's also another one area of contradiction that we can say. Rather than what we have said, multinational companies also provide job opportunities, allow people to earn higher salaries, improve their access to goods and services of high quality, which is also quite good answers in that respect. So we can also talk about the negative side of the matter to say what is the negative still on the same question. The negative side. Negative, we can say it are the multinational companies, they exploit developing countries. They exploit developing countries, and then also they also misrepresent their roles. They do misrepresent misrepresenting their roles, as in terms of what are they gonna do. What they can do is always not exactly, it does not end only there. So they further do other things other than what they've actually intended or applied to do within the hosting country. So we need to understand that again. There is also a problem of domination of economies, domination of developing countries' economies, dominating developing countries' economies is also a problem. And then maybe lastly, we can talk about cultural and moral decadence. Cultural and moral values losses. Countries which are within which are in the developing region, they also lose in terms of the Western culture imposition, which is actually a challenge which developing countries always cry of. So these are some of the problems that we can also just identify and mention in that respect. And then question 1.4, in paragraph of approximately 8 lines, evaluate the positive impact of multinational corporations might have on improving both the economy and the services of third world countries. So in that case, we are just supposed to give the other side of the story, which we just need to understand that evaluate the positive impact of multinational companies, the positive impact of the multinational companies uh, that they might have on improving. We are saying improving both the economy and the services of third world countries. So let's just quickly answer that one. So one, multinational companies say multinational companies, what do they do? Multinational corporations can improve the economies of third world countries. Multinational corporations, actually we're not multinational corporations can improve, they can improve the economies of third world countries by creating jobs, can improve the economies of third. We are saying they can improve they can improve the economies of third world countries. Third world countries by creating jobs. By creating jobs, they are creating jobs. We can talk about offering higher wages, offering higher wages. They offer higher wages and then improve the standards of living. The standards of living of people in the third world countries, the standards of living is also improved. We talk about they bring in investment, provide foreign direct investment. They provide foreign direct investment. They provide foreign direct investment, which is actually, it can actually boost industrial growth and infrastructure, growing industries and infrastructure in developing countries. It can be improved because of that. We can as well talk about many other local suppliers and businesses benefit through partnerships. We have got partnerships that are created. Partnerships can be created within the business sector. Creation of partnerships of partnerships. These partnerships, we are saying they can actually help to transfer skills and technology that help to the local industries. Local industries can as well benefit from that. And then we can also, we also talk about government revenue. That is government, any revenue, government, any money from them, government, any money from them, which is through taxes. We talk about the taxes that they pay, and also we can also improve our social services delivery, improvement in social services, in social services delivery. We can have those services being improved, and then we can also talk about this the access to better services in general, and then this can actually improve the sectors or the various economic conditions of the country. So in other words, what you need to do is you are basically just giving advantages of multinational companies, which is 1.44. What positive impact do multinational corporations have on the economy and the services of the third world countries? So all these, they come as advantages. 1.4.4. I'm saying all these, they come as advantages that you can actually give with respect to what? To the benefits of having multinational companies within a country. So these are advantages that you just basically need to mention. Uh, let's just quickly have the last one, the last part of our presentation, which is saying what type of development aid did SASA offer to the provinces? SASSA, what services does it offer to the provinces? 1.5, 1.5.1 type of services that are offered there. We can need to understand that we can say these are social aids. Social aid, or we can talk about welfare. We can say social grants. Social grants. I'm sure that we know very well that we have got social grants that are given to vulnerable groups of people. Social grants to vulnerable groups are given to vulnerable people. Vulnerable people, they receive these social aid, welfare, or social grants, which they are given in order for them to be able to to survive, in order for them to be able to make their basic living. And then, okay, it's 1.5.2. What type of development aid? What was the reason for the offering of the proof of this? This actually is intended, one, to reduce poverty. Reduce poverty. We can talk about also poverty and inequality. The differences of life amongst the citizens of the country must not be too much. So inequality is also reduced because of that. And also support of the elderly. We also need to say it is also given to support the disadvantaged, which we are saying, e.g., we talk about the children and the elderly. Elderly groups, people, they need also to receive support, which we are given, as to say these are some of the services that they give, which they receive also. So they are actually given in order to support these groups of people, in order to reduce inequalities. And then 1.5.3, how can schools benefit? Explain how schools benefited from the aid. How does schools benefit? How does schools benefit from SASSA? Benefit from SASSA. One, we are saying, how do schools benefit from SASSA? One, the schools benefited in that children receive, learners receive food through the school feeding schemes. School feeding schemes give children food, which makes them to be able to come and attend, or to attend classes. So we have got also, which results in improved learner attendance. Learner attendance and concentration in classes. We can also talk about another advantage is that we can also talk about improved pass mark, improved performance and behavior from learners. Learners are not gonna be engaged in, they cannot be able to be involved in many other social ills and problems that might also be detrimental and destructive towards their schoolwork. So we can give those as advantages of that. And then our next question is saying, state 2 ways in which the aid may not be successful. Ways through which the aid may not be successful. 1.5.4, ways through which the aid may not be successful. Ways through which the aid, 1.5.4, ways through which the aid may not be successful. What can cause the aid to be not successful? The aid cannot be successful because of what reasons? What reasons might cause the aid not to be successful? So one, we are talking about ways in which it may not be successful. We can talk one, corruption can be problems that might arise there. You can talk about corruption where people, they start to take away or eat those services or benefit from those the services being benefited by people not intended for them. We also talk about mismanagement. Mismanagement may result in waste. Mismanagement of the aid facility, which would result in those services or those aids not reaching the expected or the targeted audience. So it can be also another challenge that we can also maybe have to look at and which we can also have to consider. So what we are saying is that people who are in charge may end up cause problems there. And then we can also talk about the aid creation of dependency, creation of dependency, dependency problems. Other books can call that syndrome, whereby people can end up just waiting to be given instead of them having to sort out ways of getting food or getting their problem solved. So you've got dependent problems that might also arise, which can also be a problem that we cannot also just omit. And then the last question is saying 3 ways in which 1.5.5 are 3 ways in which South African government looks after the welfare of its citizens. How does South Africa looks after the welfare of its citizens? Which is 1.5.5 ways through which South Africa looks after the welfare of its citizens. What are those ways? One, there is provision of free services, provision of free services, e.g. we can talk about water, can talk about electricity. People get these services in order for them to be able to, we are talking about welfare, housing, the housing programs that people receive houses from the government. We talk about social grants. Social grants, these are also there to feed people. People are receiving food. They are able to buy food. They are able to look after themselves because of this. We can talk about what is it? Social grants. We can also talk about free education and healthy, subsidized education and health care. South Africa also pays, the government pays government pays some of the money of services that people are using in order for them to become cheap and affordable to them. So subsidization that the government does also is another advantage or another way through which the government also tries to cover up the inequalities and the inabilities of its people. So we are saying there are all those possible answers that can also mean and that can also make sense when it comes to the social welfare, social ways that South Africa takes care of its citizens. So thank you very much, class, for your time. And I hope that we are going to meet in the next, actually keep connected. We're going to come up with another video right now, which is going to also be still on the same term 3 work. So have a beautiful stay. Thank you very much.